She
I
said, I
don't
don't remember what she
say.
said.
Wasn't worth it.
Right.
She didn't say. He really knows me. That's all my fingers.
Oh, you like she feels.
All right. Do it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Iannuzzi, President of the Board of Education, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Iannuzzi,
Here.
Miss Lewis,
Here.
Miss Ross, Miss Clayton Fernandez. Here. Miss Jacob, Miss Klein,
Here.
Mr. Single,
Here.
Mr. Vega, Miss Williams. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to go immediately into executive session to meet with District Council and discuss the employment history of particular persons, which may lead to the employment of a particular person?
So moved, Clayton Fernandez.
Second Lewis.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We should be back around 7-ish to reconvene the public session of the meeting. Good evening, everyone. My name is William Iannuzzi. I'm president of the Board of Education, and we are going to reconvene the public session of the meeting. Colleagues, can I get a motion and second to reconvene the public session of the meeting?
So move, Lewis.
Second, Jacob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to accept minutes of the Board of Education regular meeting held on November 6, 2025, and accept minutes of the Board of Education Committee of the Whole session held on November 20th, 2025, as submitted by the clerk and secretary to the Board of Education?
So move, Lewis.
Second, Clayton Fernandez.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our first item on the agenda is Board of Education announcements. Do any of my colleagues have any announcements they would like to make? No? All right. No announcements for our board. All right, we're going to move right into the superintendent's report. Dr. Reynolds, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you very much, President Iannuzzi. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you had a fantastic Thanksgiving like I did. I can barely fit back here right now. For those of us watching at home, we welcome you. We would like to share with the community that you're going to view a vote tonight that is going to actually extend our budget by $1 million. And again, that is money that we have coming in. We want to express our deepest gratitude to our ever-dedicated New York State Senate and Assembly legislators, Senate Majority Leader Senator Andrea Student Cousins, Senate Education Committee Chair Senator Shelley Mayer, our good friend Senator Natalia Fernandez, Assemblymember Amy Paulin, and Assemblymember Steve Otis. It is due to their advocacy on behalf of the students of the City School District of New Rochelle that the district has been allotted a bullet aid grant from New York State Education Department in the amount of $1 million. New York State, come on, let's hear it for them. Yay. Thank you. New York State Senate Resolution 2025 R1248 allocates to our district grants and aid from the state government purposes. Tonight, the board will vote to accept the grant and aid and increase the current 25-26 budget to reflect the acceptance of these funds. The funding has already been earmarked to be allocated to very specific needs, particularly in our night school program, our district security, to contracted services related to student services and finances, and to additional costs to the PAY program, teaching assistants at our early childhood classrooms, and additional costs for transportation of our special education services students. I am very pleased, and I don't know whether I should say I'm proud. I don't know if I should say I'm excited. I don't know if I should say I can barely contain myself back here. But our students continue to raise the bar and set New Rochelle on the trajectory to greatness. 5 New Rochelle High School class of 2026 students are headed to prestigious colleges and universities on full 4-year QuestBridge scholarships. You have a new job. You have to lead the applause from now on. Thank you very much. Okay. Where was I? QuestBridge matches high-achieving students with the nation's top colleges to provide, in quote, transformative educational, career, and life opportunities, end quote. The scholarships support students for whom top-tier colleges are financially out of reach. The 5 New Rochelle students are among an elite group of 2,550 finalists nationwide, recognized as match scholarship recipients. The New Rochelle students are matched to, are you ready? Harvard, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, the University of Pennsylvania, or UPenn, Northwestern University, and Colgate University. They will receive early admission and scholarships that will cover the full cost of attendance, including tuition, housing and food, books and supplies, and travel expenses. Of important note, 4 of the 5 QuestBridge scholars are involved in New Rochelle High School's science research program, led by coordinators Jeff Weber and Erica Curran. The 3-year honor sequence trains students to design independent research projects and develop the professional skills needed to seek out mentors or conduct original studies. Student Government President Carlos de Aguila is the first person in his family to attend college. He is headed to Harvard to study applied mathematics with a focus on sociology. I hear Dr. Roberts over there snapping her fingers. He attributes his success to the connections, encouragement, and guidance he received from his teachers and counselors during his 12 years in the New Rochelle schools, and he is encouraging others to pursue similar opportunities. Brian Mesahil echoed his sentiments. Brian has been awarded a full scholarship to MIT, where he plans to study mechanical engineering. He, too, is the first member of his family to attend a university. Daniela Anaine Sarfo learned about QuestBridge from a TikTok video. So the one-time social media can be attested to something good. She researched the opportunity to look and took a chance that gained her admission to Colgate University, where she will study biology or neuroscience in pursuit of her dream of attending medical school. Motivated to study biomedical engineering by her mother's illness, our very own Melanie Escobar applied to the QuestBridge Scholarship at the encouragement of her school counselor. She will attend Northwestern University. And to round out our students, Sofia Fuentes will study neuroscience at the University of Pennsylvania. She is the first in her family to go to a university and feels that UPenn is the perfect fit. She wants to study neuroscience so she can help people like her grandmother who has Alzheimer's disease. We are elated to celebrate this extraordinary milestone. To cultivate 5 QuestBridge scholars in a single graduating class shatters our wildest dreams as a school district. This is the powerful culmination of the tireless collective work and unwavering commitment of our K-12 public school educators and support professionals, ensuring that each of our students realize their highest potential. So let's give our students, our adults that meet with them and teach them on a daily basis, and the families that support them a round of applause. And with that, I just want to remind everybody that schools will be closed for the winter holiday break beginning Wednesday, December 24th through Friday, January 2nd. District offices will be closed Thursday and Friday, December 25th and 26th, and closed on Thursday and Friday, January 1st and 2nd. All schools and offices will reopen on Monday, January 4th, 2026. President Iannuzzi, that concludes my report for this meeting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reynolds. Next up on our agenda is our only discussion item tonight. It is the budget workshop number 1. So Dr. Reynolds, I'll throw it right back over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give my remarks from here. Tonight, we are welcoming to the podium our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Administration, Mr. Carlos Leal. He'll be joined by our Business Administrator, Ms. Joy Mike, as we are already coming upon budget work session number 1. Just to be mindful, there are a specific number of budget work sessions that are prescribed by law that every school district should have. We are extending that minimum requirement. As we have done for the past few years, will go beyond the required number because we want our full community to have an understanding of what our financial landscape is. I also want to begin by stating that tonight, as I stated before, we're going to be accepting an additional $1 million as a gift from our legislators. That gift did not come just because my beard is pretty. That gift came because we are in dire needs in terms of what's necessary for us to maintain the excellence for our students on a daily basis. As discussed with you last year, our budget needs are actually outpacing what it is that we are being given by our state and federal government. And we understand that the difference, the delta, is really a burden to our taxpayers, and we acknowledge that. And it is our job to try not to burden the taxpayers too much in terms of keeping what's good and great in place for our students. Last year, I also shared that I predicted the year before that we would be in budget constraints for a few years. Last year was a watershed year for us. We had to take some steps to course correct our budget that led to our family here in the City School District of New Rochelle looking differently on July 1st of 2025 than it did on June 30th of 2025. We do not take that lightly. We understand that there is a person at the end of the decisions that have to be made in order to balance our budget. At the same time, we also understand that there is a child at the end of every decision that's made, whether it's in terms of personnel or in terms of a dollar. So tonight, we're going to start our understanding of what our budget variables are. We're going to look at some history in terms of what we've spent and what it is that we have been able to procure in terms of maintaining our level of greatness here in the district. And we're going to share with you what our plan of exposure to finance and budgeting will be for the remainder of this budget cycle. So I turn it over now to Mr. Carlos Leal and Ms. Joy Mike.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Good evening, President Iannuzzi and Vice President Lewis, board members. As Dr. Reynolds mentioned, this is the start of a journey together, and our hope is that we will be able to provide you with all the information necessary to make an informed decision at the end of this process, but also hope that there'll be some building of understanding of the decisions that we have to make collectively. That being said, the budget process as a whole really begins with our guiding principles, which we'll share this evening. Everything aligned to our strategic roadmap with a focus on particular areas. Then the variables that we'll discuss this evening, and always asking for stakeholder input through this process as we get to the budget vote itself. So as for our guiding principles, they are our mission, our equity statement, and our whole child approach. So I won't go into these, but again, the backdrop I think is extremely important because these words mean and matter so much. So in terms of our strategic roadmap, through this process, you'll hear a conversation regarding student learning, superb staff, safe, supportive, and connected schools, and of course, our resource management and how we use those funds to get to where we need to. That being said, our areas of focus. Of course, all of this is continued commitment to the strategic roadmap and the whole child. And as we're entering these conversations, we want to focus on student outcomes. How do we still achieve that as our North Star? That any decisions, evidence-based and data-supported decision-making is taking place. This is not I have an opinion, but we're using data to inform those decisions, whether they're difficult ones or easy ones. Going into this, we've also already had a conversation with all departments and all schools across the system to say, as we begin this process, we're going to start with a 10% reduction of discretionary funds. We are going to certainly look at leveraging attrition and retirement. Not that we're asking people to leave, but for those who are choosing the next step in their life, how do we take that into consideration as we're building the budget? And then, of course, asking everyone across the system to truly think about the external contracts that we have in play. Do we need all those contracts? And if we do, how can we reduce the cost of those contracts? And then staying within the allowable tax cap, that is our desire going into this process. In terms of the budget development approach, saving and resource management is going to be the theme across all 4 strategic roadmap categories. The cost budget allocations provided based on enrollment. So when we begin to look at individual locations, you'll notice that, again, we are using a formula that allows us to equitably distribute those dollars across the system. Again, the discretionary spending has been decreased by 10% at the get-go. The leadership team asked asked schools and departments to budget within their allocations, and everyone was very thoughtful in that process. We actually started this morning, starting to meet with schools, and we'll be continuing to do that. Joy will speak a little bit more about those dates. And people are understanding what's in front of us. No projected increase in overall staffing. So we've made that clear that we are not having conversations to add additional staff. And then as the schools are working through their process, as well as the departments, and the cabinet will review and approve all requests that exceed allocation, because one of the tabs in their budget spreadsheet is, this didn't make my allocation, but I would like to present you with an unbudgeted request, and we'll take those under consideration. So the first thing we needed to do was look at our district enrollment. And so again, every year we use our beds data as the marker. If you look to the far left, right, from 2017 up to our actual as of 2024, you'll notice the number change at the far bottom. Whereas in 2017, it was 70, which was a positive, and an actual in 2018 was a decrease of 268 children. And you'll notice from 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, there was a decrease, but the number of kids that are decreasing is now less. And you'll notice that at an actual for 2024, we had an increase of 34 children, or 34 students. BOCES had projected a decrease of 285 for this particular school year, but we only actually decreased by 13. So what was projected is not our actual reality. We're actually starting to even out, and that is what we are using as our marker again for this coming school year. So BOCES projection for 2026 currently is a reduction of 73 students. We can't predict exactly what that number will be, but again, we're using this plus our actuals to establish our budget. The other item we wanted to highlight this evening was the equity allocation by building. Again, we're distributing those dollars equitably across the system. So I'll use the high school as the example. They receive 30% of that allocation, which makes sense because they have a third of our students. And you'll look at all of the other campuses based on the number of students and then their portion of the full allocation. That being said, we'll move into the budget variables just to give you an understanding of the things that we have to consider in building the budget.
Good evening, everyone. There are several variables that we must take into account as we embark on the budget development process, and it is a process that will take us through the adoption in the spring. So one of the initial variables that we are considering is the CPI rate, or the Consumer Price Index rate, which was trending currently above 3.2%, and that will inform some of the contracts that we have in the district. In addition, state aid is a variable that is pretty significant for us. We will get those numbers. The initial governor's proposal will be in the January timeframe, towards the end of January. So the foundation aid numbers at this point are unknown, but we will have more information in the next 8 weeks or so. Building aid is based on our ongoing capital projects, which we have a number of projects that are in the final stages of completion, as well as the most recent project on security vestibules throughout the district, which should be completed at the close of this school year. Our grant fund allocations are another variable, which we will discuss in a few moments. One variable that has been positive, at least for the last couple of years, is the Westchester County sales tax, which districts receive as a revenue item, has been trending in the positive for the past couple of years. And then the appropriated fund balance, which really in layman's terms is sort of the district's savings applied to the tax levy to decrease the burden to the taxpayer. So that's one variable that we have to continue to consider. So in terms of variables and those assumptions, there are some that we have significant control over and some that we don't. So the ones in bold are those that we have some role to ascertain what the final result will be in collaboration with others, obviously. So the collective bargaining agreements for our FUSE members and also for our ANS staff, those are pending. The current agreements will sunset or conclude at June 30th of 2026. We also have agreements that need to be finalized for our non-represented employees and also our management and confidential employees. So those are things that will be worked on or considered throughout this budget development process. Some things that we do not have direct control over are the teachers' retirement system rate for the employer's contribution. Those numbers will become available either later this month or into January. No, it should be soon. The local retirement system rate for our civil service employees. Those rates are important because they relate to what we will need to pay as an employer into those retirement systems. And then the health insurance premium rates. We are hoping to get those numbers later this month so that we can start to project what we expect health insurance premiums to be. And then retiree benefits. Obviously, we understand our current retirees, but depending on which employees put in for retirement, we'll have to take a look at those numbers. And then lastly, our Medicare reimbursements for those employees or former employees who are eligible. Moving on into staffing, in terms of variables, again, the bold section are those that we have some input into. We are looking at our 6-period assignments, which are primarily at the secondary level for coverages that as a result of vacancies, mostly. Our building substitute models across the district. There are a certain number of substitutes that are allocated to each building, and so we are taking a close look at that model. We're looking at optimal caseloads for our clinicians and operational ratios as well for our, for instance, security and other support roles. And then overall looking at staffing realignment. So as we learn of retirements or possibly resignations, taking a critical look at those responsibilities and roles to see how realignment might align to the requests that are being made at the building and department levels. And then, so towards the bottom, which we really don't have control over, is staff retirements. I know there is a date in the contracts that we are looking for some sort of notification by January 1st. So back to CPI, Consumer Price Index, as I mentioned, that's trending well above 3%. Those directly impact our transportation costs with our transportation providers. Certain contracts that are tied, the increases are tied to that CPI rate. And then our BOCES contracts and services also have some impact or to CPI. We are also planning for or need to plan for the impact of charter schools that are approved for the city of New Rochelle. We currently have 2 charter schools, one that has already been approved and one that is in the approval process that we must consider as we budget for 26-27. And then in terms of the state and federal aid, that's a significant unknown for us at this moment. We don't know if we are looking for a possible increase. We're not sure if we may be in a hold harmless situation. Hold harmless simply means that the districts will not get any less state aid than they got in the current year, but that is decided upon on an annual basis by the governor's office. It's not something that is a guarantee. We're also not sure if our state and federal aid will have a significant reduction or a minimal reduction. In addition, we are planning for, based on information that we have received to date, a reduction of our federal formula grant funds. That includes our Title I, II, III, and IV grants. We are currently looking at a projected decrease in those grants of about 27%. And then for our IDEA, Section 611 and 619, which is primarily administered by our Special Education Department, we are anticipating a 15% projected decrease in those grant funds. So as we sort of round out the variables and assumptions at this point, we are looking to always leverage our strategic roadmap that Mr. Leal mentioned earlier. And we will have checkpoints with our district leadership team throughout the process. Overall, we are looking to not have an increase in FTE. So as that sort of speaks to that realignment. And we are looking to stay within the class size guidelines. These guidelines have been in place for a couple of years. In some places, we're right on target. In some places, we're still far below those class size guidelines. So again, for kindergarten, that ranges from 18 to 22, grades 1 to 2. The range is between 20 and 24. For grades 3 and 5, that range is 22 to 26. And for grades 6 through 12, those ranges are 25 to 30, with the physical education and arts departments having a range of 30 to 45, depending on classroom space. Yes. This is a slide that really kind of gives a shorter history of our tax levies. In previous years, we've shown you about 10 years worth of school years, but here we start with the 2020 to 2021 school year through the 25-26 school year, or our current fiscal year. You'll notice that second column is our maximum percent increase. That was the maximum tax levy that we could initiate for the school district, starting at 0.38% in 2021, 2.73%, 2.55% in 22-23. 23-24 was 2.19%, 24-25 was 3.95%, and this fiscal year was 0.33%. And so that left column maximum percent increase was the maximum that the district could go to. You'll notice as you go across, there's some, the actual limit that aligns to that maximum percent, and then the dollars that is associated with that. Then you see sort of that yellow line in the middle. And then you have the actual tax levy. That's the levy that the district actually put forward at the conclusion of the budget development process. So you'll see in 2021, it was flat, 0% increase. 22, 21, 22 was 2.29%. 22, 23, 0.98%. The same in 23, 24. And then 24, 25 was the first year in several years that the district went to the maximum allowable rate of 3.95. So that matches that first column. And then last year, the tax levy increase was also 3.95. And that was the first year that the district went for piercing the cap. So you'll notice the first 4 rows from 2020 through 2024. There's a negative number there, meaning that the district did not levy about $7.8 million in revenue. And if you think about the formula that I won't expand upon, that's a compounding effect over years, right? So 24, 25, first year we went maximum allowable in several years. And then last year, or this year, what year are we in? We went $8.3 million, which was piercing the cap, but just over, no, actually less than $1 million over what was left or what was not levied in the previous years, if that makes sense. So that was not compounded, yes, all at once. So that's just a quick tax levy history of where we've been. The next slide is a picture of our grant funding because we have a significant number of grants. This is kind of a busy slide, so if you bear with me for a moment. The names of the grant programs are listed on the left. The first column of numbers is the 23-24 budget. And so I won't read each individual grant to you, but for the 23-24 school year, we had $18.7 million in federal and state grants. The 24-25 school year, that number went down to $8.6 million, largely because of some of the ESSER and GEAR funding that was available through the COVID years, sunsetting at that point in time. And then for this fiscal year, that number went to $8.4 million. And as we mentioned, the variables in the state and federal funding, expecting a 27% decrease in the title grants and a 15% decrease in the IDEA grants, we're looking at a projected $6.5 million in state and federal grants, which is a decrease of just under $2 million. And so with that cheery picture, I will pass it off to Mr. Leal to discuss the roadmap.
Thank you. So again, these are our variables. So we already know that there are some hard truths that we have to consider as we begin to build the budget. And so again, like we have in the past, every time we get information, we will bring it forward to this group. We are still waiting for a lot more information. And in terms of, I will just say this before I share that, in terms of the grants, there's a lot of conversation being had around, will the Senate get what they want? Will the House push forward something that pretty much eliminates possibly Title III completely or immigrant grant completely? So there are still unknown variables out there. So we are doing the best we can with the knowledge we have at the moment, and that's how we will proceed in terms of this process. In terms of the budget activities moving forward, thank you again for allowing us to start now so that we can begin the community conversation. Moving forward, again, as the buildings have already submitted their items, we started a conversation with them this morning, and we'll continue to do that with schools and departments through December 19th, where we consider all staffing and facilities requests. And then looking ahead, we'll come back for session number 2 on January 6th, 3 and 4 in the month of February, session 5 and 6 in March, with a desire for March 26th being the day that the board would adopt a budget so that we can make sure we meet our deadlines and our timelines to get this out to the community for discussion and then their vote. We started last year with this slide, but we wanted to end it because at the end of all of this, we are required to provide to you a balanced budget. Just as simple as that. That's what we have to present to you. That is what we are going to work diligently to provide. In terms of the budget development calendar, the bottom are the meeting times. We are with the board. That brings us again to March 26th, which was the session number 6, the budget hearing on May 5th, and then May 19th, which is the budget vote itself. And the items on top, the purple and the blue, show that the meetings that are taking place at the same time within the system, informing next steps as we go through this process. Always, again, we would like some stakeholder feedback. We've already started to get some inquiries from our community, like, have you heard this? Have you heard that? And we're like, yes. You heard it differently. What do you know, et cetera. But throughout this entire process, please, we ask that the community review our budget sessions. These are recorded and then posted on the website. So please, if you need to hear it again, presentations to the board, the budget hearing will be another great opportunity. We'll continue to listen to our administrators and Then the stakeholder feedback, again, as we did last year, the first, of course, they can always email yourselves at the BOE. We've already set up an email address, so if anyone has questions or comments, we'll accept those through the budget questions at nredlearn.org. And of course, coming to board meetings, watching the meetings, streaming those, and looking at any archives to help them and inform them through this process and their decision-making. So thank you, and any questions and discussions at this point?
I would like to thank the team for presenting what our plan of action is as it relates to the budget process. And please keep in mind that tonight's conversation is strictly about that. It's about the budget process because we still have so many variables that are not made available to us. Just wanted to focus on a couple things. Hopefully this might answer some questions or refresh the memories of many of our community members. So when we're looking at, on slide number 11, our student enrollment, we tend to use the term Beds Day. We want to express that that's an acronym statewide for Basic Education Data Survey Day. So every school district must report their attendance to the state on the second Wednesday of October so that every district is measured in the same fashion by that data. We know that the next day our enrollment changes. Somebody can come in, somebody may go out. So the number that we will actually be working with, and we found this trend to be truthful over the past few years, is by the time we finish our budget development, we were actually instructing more students than what's reflected on Beds Day. So if we see that number change, that is the reason why. The other thing that I wanted to really focus on, if you look at the second bullet on slide number 14, foundation aid. So please know we, the superintendents, particularly in the Lower Hudson region, are probably some of the most fervent advocates for making every school district in New York whole as it relates to foundation aid. Yes, we are actually getting more aid than we have in the past, but no district is fully funded. So we are advocating for that to be fully funded. Until we are fully funded, we're going to be playing catch up every year. And then lastly, I wanted to share with bullet number 3 on slide 17, state and federal aid and revenue. So the request that we have at the very least is that we are granted hold harmless. And hold harmless means that we will not get less funding than we did the previous year. That is a governor's decision to be made annually. The governor can choose to employ hold harmless or not. So the request really is the request is please make sure that we receive what we're entitled to, but at the very least, don't hurt us more than what we were hurt last year. So with that, we turn it over to the board for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds and team. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Ms. Clayton Fernandez?
Excellent. Again, it's a very it's a document. You can see the work and the good numbers popping in. On slide 12, on the equity allocations by building, I had a question. Is it really related on building, or is it allocation of students per building?
So it's really allocation of students per building, and even within that, we look at the student profile. So a student may be a general education, every student gets a general education allocation. Then if a student has an IEP, they would get the special education allocation as well. If a student is a special education child, a child with an IEP, and is also considered to be an English language learner, or ENL, they would get an additional allocation. So that's how all of the funds are allocated on a per pupil basis.
A few thoughts and then one question. The first is a simple one, but for any acronyms that we have, the FTO, C, PBI, et cetera, just to write out the long term, because the next board members look at these presentations, so we can refer to them to what we did the previous year, and they'll see the full terms that you're using. Another thing that I just learned today at work is that apparently we budgeted for X amount for supplies that we have to pay for next year for recruiting, and it turns out that those numbers are severely off because of tariffs. And so something that we've never heard that word at work before, but now is completely shifting all of our budgets. And so it's not a word we hear here either, and I'm sure that deliveries and such may also be impacted. So just putting it out there for as we go to the actual numbers, if that's actually becoming an issue, because apparently is at work. You mentioned the BOCES formula. Is it as complicated as the state aid formula, or is that in terms of like projections of number of students that we're supposed to have? Is that something that we can kind of rely on more so than state aid, or is it just as complicated?
We receive your feedback as it relates to the acronyms, so we will ensure that is rectified moving forward. And I did see it myself as I was sitting there. For the second part, as it relates to tariffs, please keep in mind, so yes, it does affect our budgeting. And yes, it does affect the timeline in which we're able to complete projects or offer supplies to our students. When we first began the discovery of repairing the pool, and we looked at a dollar amount, I was very clear in stating that that's the dollar amount as of today. Any type of, at the time it wasn't tariffs, it was supply chain. Any type of supply chain actions were going to affect the amount that we would have to spend on particular materials. The same applied to tariffs as well. So again, we cannot predict it. We kind of budget with a little bit of a buffer. Right? That's what that's where the CPI comes in. We try to, for certain things, particularly as it relates to everything that Keith needs in order to keep our buildings looking great, we add a little additional buffer, just knowing that that might be an issue. And lastly, as it relates to the BOCES the BOCES student predictions, it's not really something that we're made aware of, how they predict how many students we're going to lose or gain. It's something that's done for all districts that are part of component districts with the BOCES. We've also found with our demographers that those numbers have not been, on the money from year to year. So there's not a lot of predictive measure that we can predict that would match the numbers. So I don't know if I'm expressing that appropriately. Just the student allocation.
Oh, so I'm not sure if I'm answering the BOCES enrollments, or I'm asking the BOCES revenue question.
Enrollment.
Enrollment. So the BOCES enrollment projections do change, but they have not been wholly accurate as we look at the projected to actual. But we also have students that are enrolled in BOCES for CTE programs or vocational technology programs.
Korean technical education? No?
We are technical education. Sorry.
Yes. Those programs. And those enrollment numbers, we actually are very aware of. We know how many students are enrolled in BOCES, those that are slated to graduate at the end of the school year. And so then there are meetings and students that go visit to determine if they think that BOCES is a good placement for them for the next school year. Those numbers are more easily predicted.
So just to clarify that, these projections are not BOCES students. This is total district-wide. They use a predictive algorithm, and we have not found it to be exactly accurate. But every school district is subject to it.
Okay. And my very last question, can you tell us and the folks at home more about what types of services fall within Title III, for example? Like I know we hear about Title I and IV, but not so much about the other titles.
So Title III, yeah, if I can freaking read it. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, no, one more. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. So Title III, Title IV is really supporting our immigrant students. So there's a misnomer here when you're thinking about, oh, that must be our kids who speak Spanish, and that's not the case, right? We service students who speak multiple languages, and this is additional supports and services for those particular students. So it overlaps with our ENL, and basically is providing both service to the students, providing service to the families, providing service to the community. So it's all those kind of wraparound services around that particular group.
Thank you.
Ms. Klein?
Yeah, hi. Just one question. Thank you for this. This is incredibly helpful and educational. And I appreciate that we're starting it now, knowing, what's coming down the road. I'm just wondering as I hear this, and I know we're waiting on so much information, so many numbers, how do we hold New York State accountable for what for, um, the foundation aid and, the governor to, at the very least, allow us to hold harmless? Are there steps that we can do?
Again, please allow me to be a little bit of groveling here. I want to be very, very clear in our appreciation for our locally elected legislators. Right, so they do interact with the governor in terms of budget preparation and fight, endlessly for what it is that our schools are entitled to. So again, Senator Stuart Cousins, Senator Mayer, Senator Fernandez, Assemblymember Otis, Assemblymember Paulin, they are true friends of the district. What I would state is it's incumbent upon us as local taxpayers to express our concerns directly to the governor, to advocate for our children, for our public schools, trying to keep public funds allocated to public schools is another type of advocacy that we can get behind. So communication directly with the governor, stating that, please make our schools make our schools whole. Make sure that we receive the appropriate foundation aid that we're supposed to. Please, at the very least, please employ hold harmless for all of our schools so that we receive at least the funding that we needed the year before. Because, quite honestly, for those of us who need this this type of vision, while a lot of the control is in the governor's hands, the governor still receives federal funding. So we know that if the federal funding isn't coming to the state, the governor has to make some shifts in order to budget appropriately. So we also have to ensure that our federal offices are informed of our needs and our desires, right? So if we're automatically seeing cuts to federal funding of 27%, particularly for our immigrant population, and we're looking at 15% for our special education services. Right off the bat, that's how we're budgeting. And please keep in mind, I shared at our We Are One award 2 years ago that my prediction was that the federal government was, when they were talking about equity, it wasn't about equity based on race. The first equity action in this country is special education. And here we are today. We are seeing the effects of that. So it's important that we keep the fire lit under the federal government as well as under our governor.
And can I just piggyback off of that? There are opportunities at the board and the superintendent. We participate in a lot of advocacy events. Me and Dr. Reynolds 2 weeks ago were with Senator Mayer and other Westchester superintendents and board presidents. But there's also opportunities through Westchester Putnam Schools Boards Association, where the superintendent and a board member will Zoom one-on-one with our elected officials and let them know what our priorities are, what we need. And as Dr. Reynolds said, we have great elected officials, and when we call them, they pick up their phones.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, I just have a couple. Piggybacking off of Ms. Lewis about the BOCES projections, do we have any do we have a timeline of we're going to get a new demographer's report?
So We've already engaged in that conversation, so we are supposed to be receiving some information in the end of December or January.
Perfect. And then piggybacking off of just projections and estimations, do we know what pilot revenue will be this year? Just asking because I know it's going to have an effect on our tax cap formula.
So again, thank you to, as Mary Adair always says, our cousins in government. So we're very thankful to the city council as well as to the mayor's office and our city manager. They've made the district whole as it relates to pilots. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but for the last 2 years, at the very least, we've received the pilot allocation that we were entitled to. So I'm very appreciative of that as well.
All right, thank you. And then my last question on slide 20 about the the grant funding. So I mean, it's a sobering reality to see that a lot of the grants that we have are affecting the neediest students and members of our community. And I'm just going to pinpoint this universal pre-K for a second because it is a large drop of almost 600,000. And I believe that's a state grant, but I could be wrong. But what is that effect going to have on universal pre-K? Is it losing collaborators? Is it losing is it affecting Barnard or
I
collaborators?
can't say exactly how it's going to impact. I think that's the conversation we have to have in terms of how can we provide service with available dollars? So the interesting point there is, and I actually pulled this up, was that the conversation currently is that number could change between now and a month from
Yeah.
now, because the Senate is talking about leveling funding. So therefore there wouldn't be a decrease unless the state decides something otherwise. The House is talking about a complete reduction. But then the language is it really more about money towards Head Start only? So there's still a lot of variables out there. So we're moving forward with the 27% because based on what we read thus far, it's an umbrella over these categories. If that changes, we'll certainly come back. But in terms of if we have to move forward in this direction, what does it actually mean? We don't know yet,
Okay.
but that's something we have to work through together.
Thank you. Colleagues, does anybody else have any questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Next up on the agenda are liaison reports. Do any of my colleagues have any liaison reports? And just a heads up for our colleagues, at our next meeting, we'll probably have an amendment to one of our policies to combine board announcement and liaison reports. So they're just one portion of the meeting instead of two. All right, seeing none, we're going to move into the public comment period of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to convene into the public comment period of the meeting. The Board of Education adopted Policy 1230 in April 2022 to ensure all members of the public had the opportunity to speak at both of our board meetings each month. We believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, understand the board will not respond to your concerns and questions tonight. We take your concerns and questions seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. We will, however, respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. I also want to point out that under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel and students. Please know, however, that we take personal concerns very seriously. On these matters, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. Finally, we recognize that right now our nation and our community are polarized on a number of issues. That said, we want our school board meetings to serve as an example to our students that members of our school board and members of our community can deal with controversial issues in a civil manner and demonstrate mutual respect for one another. In that spirit, we will insist that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. We ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. In the unlikely event the meeting becomes unruly, the board will recess the meeting and return once order has been restored. Finally, I want to remind everyone that you may submit written comments to the board in lieu of speaking during the public comment period if you so choose. Tonight, we've set aside 45 minutes for public comment, where each speaker who has signed up before 3:30 has 3 minutes to speak. If a person requests to speak after 3:30, speakers may sign up in person at the meeting with the clerk and will be afforded the opportunity to speak. We currently have no one signed up for public comment. Would anybody like to sign up for public comment? Okay, Ms. Breslin.
Good evening. Mary Claire Breslin, president of Fuse. I just want to make an announcement that Fuse is partnering with PTAC For sock drive, the boxes will be in all the buildings. We're collecting new socks from the beginning of next week through January 16th, and it will benefit the Sharing Shelf in Port Chester. And for those that don't know, the Sharing Shelf was started by a New Rochelle mom, and the Sharing Shelf takes very good care of the needy kids in New Rochelle. So I hope people will step forward, donate socks, new socks. And we did this right before the pandemic, and our goal was 1,000 socks, and we collected well over that. So our goal this time is 3,000. So I hope all will partake. Thank you.
Are there any requirements for the socks other than being new? Can we re-emphasize that they need to be new socks?
Could you please repeat your question?
With your indulgence. This is out of the ordinary, but can you please give the requirements for the sock donation again?
New.
Brand new. Thank you.
New, any
Unworn.
size.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Breslin. Next up, Ms. Dasim.
Good evening. Sorry, I got here a little late, so I didn't hear everything. Forgive me if I'm repeating something that you covered. So when I first look at quickly this charge, I'm looking at the equity allocations by building, of course, because we've had, I take this as what, Title I and all that. Is that what that means? Am I reading this right? When it says equity allocations by building? I'm just asking. Can I ask that? Okay. That's what comes to, that's one of the big things that come to mind. Anyway, when I look at these numbers, if you do like a quick calculation, I've only been able to do some. But for example, Columbus is like 7.5% of the population of students, but they're getting 11% of the equity allocation. The ward is 8.6% of the population, and they are getting 7%. Davis is 6.5%, just about, of the population. They're getting 5%. I only say this to highlight something that we've, been struggling with for a long time in terms of the kids from the Lincoln Avenue district attendance zone, making sure that they are getting all of those programs that they're entitled to because they're bussed out into these different schools, particularly Davis, Ward, that don't get, I'm sorry, that do not get all of these allocations. And so just wondering, again, how are we going to do better at this? We love to say, oh, it follows the school, it doesn't follow the child. We know that. Given that, what do we need to do to make sure that these kids are getting their proper supports? So that's one that I saw real quickly. And then this BOCES thing, later maybe we could find out. I understand BOCES for the high school and stuff, but BOCES for pre-K and all this, I'm curious as to what all of that kids are getting. Is it the, whatever additional programs that they get for reading, math lab and stuff like that, if that's what we're saying for grade 1 through 8 before the high school. The high school is a little more defined, but the other schools, it's not as defined. So that's something that would be good to get cleared up that I'm seeing right here. I can't see the clock. Oh, I have 13 seconds. Well, just that, again, it's good for us to get where were we? What did we cut? With our budget? What are we going to have? You may have done some of that, but to the details that we've been looking for. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dasim. Would anybody else like to sign up for public comment? Ms. Carl?
Lorraine Carl, 43 Belmont Avenue. I think I should have been here in October because what I'm going to say has to do with the poor acknowledgement of the Italian community in New Rochelle. What I received was a sort of a newsletter via email that a teacher taught his coworkers how to make cannolis and explain what the word meant. I didn't see anything about any of the children, our students learning about Italian immigrants who had a very important effect on New Rochelle and contributed quite a bit. I'm a first generation Italian American on my father's side. He came here as a young boy at 15 with a trade to work in the garment district. He was able to live with his aunt and uncle for 6 months, but he had to find a job, go to night school, and find a place to live, and then send money home to his mother, my grandmother. His story is just one of many who live in New Rochelle and who lived primarily in the West End. He also was in the World War II, African campaign, Normandy, Germany, England. He received a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. As I say, again, his story is one of many. So as our year is progressing and we will be honoring many communities in New Rochelle, let's make sure that they all receive the same acknowledgement and our students learn about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kroll. All right, seeing no more for public comment, we're going to move on to the next item of the agenda, new business consent agenda personnel resolutions. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to approve consent agenda for personnel resolutions, number 26-198, 1 through 17, number 26-199, 1 through 1, number 26-200, 1 through 29, number 26-201, 1 through 1, number 26-202, 1 through 15, number 26-203, 1 through 4, and number 26-204, according to the recommended action for each item.
So move, Lewis.
Second, Clayton Fernandez.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to approve consent agenda for general resolutions number 26-205 through number 26-226, according to the recommended action for each item?
So move, Lewis.
Second, Clayton Fernandez.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next meeting will be a special meeting held on Thursday, December 18th at Albert Leonard Middle School. Tonight, we are adjourning in memory of Mr. Joe Tucker, a retired painter from the custodial staff who passed away on September 3rd, 2025. Regina Fuchs, a retired Isaac E. Young clerical staff who passed away on September 18th, 2025. Clayton Miller, a retired teacher at Albert Leonard Middle School who passed away on October 8th, 2025. Stanley Eli, a retired teacher at New Rochelle High School who passed away on October 9th, 2025. And Nikki Jerome, a retired plumber at the Grove Avenue who passed away on October 30th, 2025. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So move, Lewis.
Second, Jacob.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.